In this lesson, we are going to create a clamp assembly. So open up your last work. It's titled Exercise Clamp. So click on the document menu and click copy workspace. And then put the word assembly. Okay, so at the bottom it says assembly 1. So click on that. Right click, rename it to small arm sub-assembly. Now let's insert some components for the small arm sub-assembly. Click on insert, and here's your part studio. This is what you drew before. So for the small arm, we need the pivot pin, the small arm grip, and the last one is the small arm pin. So once you selected those 4, click the check and then zoom out. You see all 4 parts were inserted. So now click on group, and what we do is we group the instances that we know wouldn't be moving. So in this case, the pivot pin, so click on the pivot pin, the small arm, and the small arm pin, and then click check. So those 3 aren't supposed to be moving, but this one should be able to move. So it's best practice that you fix one of the parts. So in this case, we are going to fix the pivot pin. So click on the pivot pin and move the triad manipulator towards the center of the pin. Now right click and say fix. So this one now is fixed, it won't move. Next we need to use revolute mate for this part, the grip. So click on revolute and select this side. Select that's the inner circle. And then this outer circle right here. And then accept it. And now you'll see that this could actually revolve around that place. Okay, so right click revolute and reset just to reset it back. Okay, this assembly is not complete if we don't have the other side of the small arm. So right click on the small arm, copy small arm, and then right click again and then paste small arm. Okay, and then the last thing that we need to do now is just do a fasten. So click on the fasten mate, select the mate connector on the pivot pin, and then select the mate connector at this hole. Accept. And then you'll see you now have the small arm assembly. Let's create a new assembly. Rename it to the working clamp assembly. So the working clamp assembly is going to be our main assembly. Okay, so click insert, and then instead of selecting part studios, we click on assemblies because we made a sub-assembly. So click on the small arm sub-assembly and then click check. And now we have the small arm sub-assembly that we did into our main assembly. So click on the pivot pin, right click on the pivot pin and click fix because we don't want this to move. Now we're going to insert the rest of the parts that we need. So we need the large arm, we need the large arm grip, we need the large arm pin, and then accept. Okay, so as you can see, it actually went in the right place, like how we drew it in the first place. Now click group. We need to group the large arm and the large arm pin. Notice that instead of clicking here, I actually click on the parts. That works as well. So click check. And then we need to put a revolute mate on the large arm and the large arm grip. So let's move this out of place first. And then click on Revolute. Select this piece, the mate connector there, and then the mate connector here. And then accept it. Now you see these three parts, 1, 2, 3, the large arm grip, the large arm, and the large arm pin can actually be grouped together into one subassembly again. So what you want to do is click on these three parts, 1, 2, 3, and then right click and say move to a new subassembly. And the new subassembly is formed right here. Okay, so let's click on that new subassembly. And let's rename that large arm subassembly. Okay, and in the large arm subassembly, the only thing that we're missing is another large arm. So right click on the large arm and copy large arm, and then right click, paste large arm. Okay, actually there's another one that we need. We need another one of these pins. So right click and then copy large arm pin, and then right click, paste large arm pin. Okay, so this large arm pin goes down here. So let's do a fastened mate for that. So this mate connector and that mate connector, accept that. And then we need to do another fasten. So click on fastened, and you could either use this hole with this large pin or use this hole with this large pin, doesn't matter. So I'm just going to use this. There's that mate connector and the mate connector for this, and then check. And then now we have the large subassembly. Now when I move to the working clamp assembly, the main assembly that we're working on a while ago, notice that it's already complete. All we have to do now is just move the large arm onto the small arm. And for that, we're going to use another Revolute. And we want to select this. Okay. And mate it with that part. Okay, notice that it just moved one. You want to click on solve to see the rest of the parts to actually move with the large arm. Okay, so that looks right. And then now click check. And there you go. Let's see the movement. So that's the movement. As you can see, there's interference there. And reset that. And then what we want to do is we want to edit that Revolute mate and put limits. So add 0 and 30. So when it closes, it all goes all the way to 0 degrees. And then when it opens, just to 30 degrees. Check. Now let's see what that limit does. Okay, it stops there. And it stops there. Last thing. Open up the clamp all the way to 30 degrees to the maximum. And then click on the large arm pin and click on the small arm pin. And you should get the parallel axis distance between those two. So if you get this number, then you actually did it right. Let's take a screenshot. That's it. Close document and turn in your work to albericoj@mdusd.net.